rebuild of the favorites. We here for the latest. South side or the north side, not tuned to the greatest. Home team for the home teams. Both sides got our own rings. On the mound or the long ball, but we don't pull the wrong strings. Yeah. It's that time of the year now. Wrigley or Gantes or the whole league that we hear now. New show with a new mood. Discussions and interviews. Trade rumors that might be. This is Pinwheels and Knife.
Hello and welcome to the Pinwheels and Ivy podcast. I'm Mitchell Kaminski. This is the Pinwheels pregame show, bringing you White Sox talk every Wednesday in the 12 o'clock hour. We got a lot to talk about this week. We're going to remove that. That's going to be coming up later. We got a lot to talk about this week. White Sox had a couple injuries, including their starting left fielder, Andrew Benintendi. So how are they going to address those? What's the depth look like moving forward? Davis Martin making a very strong case to be the opening day starter. We're going to break down how he's kind of revitalized his career with the new pitch. Finally, big news that happened last week. Didn't get the chance to touch on it, but the White Sox might have some new ownership coming into the fold, which is very exciting anytime Jerry Reinsdorf might be wanting to sell the team. So a lot on tap here for you. We're all fired up today. I've already gotten a workout in, interviewed a senator from Missouri, and now I get to talk some White Sox baseball with you fine folks. So nothing better on this Wednesday. So let's start with this. New White Sox could potentially have some new ownership. It was reported by The Athletic that Justin Ishba is interested in buying the White Sox. He recently pulled out of agreement with the Twins because he was the prospective owner there and has bought up some more shares for the White Sox. It looks like Jerry Reinsdorf could be ceding ownership or control of the organization over to Ishba sooner rather than later. Now, according to this story, Ishba would be controlling the White Sox. His brother Matt would be the investor. That's Matt with one T. It's kind of the reverse of the agreement they have right now in Phoenix. Now, these two, very wealthy. These two brothers from around the Chicagoland area. Now, he already has some stakes in the White Sox, but they own the Phoenix Mercury. They own the Phoenix Suns. They have an MLS team in Nashville. So they own a lot. Apparently, though, big baseball fans interested in owning a baseball team. Now, in the media, I know everyone was really excited about the prospect of Jerry Reinsdorf finally giving up ownership. And that is exciting because you got a guy in Reinsdorf who claims he loves baseball. He even said, I would trade some of my titles I won under Michael Jordan for another World Series. Yet he doesn't act like he wants to win, despite being in a big market. Never seems that they'll pay money at times, but, never consistent spenders, always kind of dangling the carrot in front of fans. We're constantly in rebuilds. For someone that claims he loves the game of baseball, I mean, he sure has to because he's showing up. He claims he likes showing up to the ballpark every day, and he's watching this pitiful product they're helping put on the field. So I get why White Sox fans very happy to see the potential of him moving on from the organization. Obviously, it's been years of misery under Reinsdorf's watch. However, I think in the short term, a lot of people are overlooking the fact the Ishbas nearly bought the Twins. It was close. According to this story from The Athletic, they had meetings set up with community leaders around Minnesota, potential investors in Minneapolis. The MLB had already conducted the Twins' request. They do like a background check on them because they have to do a vetting process for all prospective owners. The MLB had done that. Like they're digging on him to make sure it's all good. It looked like the sale was going to go through. And if that sale did go through, judging by just how he runs the Phoenix Suns, he's very aggressive. Now, a lot of those moves with the Suns haven't worked out, but spent a lot of money bringing Kevin Durant in, spent a lot of money keeping Devin Booker in the Valley, brought in Bradley Beal. These guys aren't afraid to spend money. The Twins are kind of like one of these teams. If you look at the AL Central in a whole, it's ripe for the taking. None of these teams spend big money. Cleveland doesn't. Kansas City doesn't. Minnesota doesn't. The White Sox don't. The White Sox are the big market team of that bunch. This should be their division to control every year. But the Twins, despite the fact that they don't spend, and I'll just put this in perspective, Spot Track, last year's payroll, Twins were 19th in payroll. They finished the season 82-80. The White Sox were 18th. They finished 41 and 121. So Twins don't spend a whole lot of money as it is. Middle of the pack, bottom half of the pack. You bring in an owner like that, which already kind of has a better structure in place because Chris Getz is doing a full tear down of this organization. An owner like that's willing to spend, new guy on the block, wants to make a splash. White Sox could have been in trouble there. Had he have bought the Twins, that would have spelled disaster. I could see the Twins controlling that division for a while. Now, look, there's no guarantee that he's going to spend all this money. I think a lot of people, when Jerry Reinsdorf first bought the team, it was probably exciting. Hey, this rich guy's buying the team. Maybe he'll spend a lot of money. There's no guarantee he's going to spend all this money. But if you look at the way he's operated with some of the other teams that these two brothers have owned, it seems like they are pretty aggressive. It seems like it would be a good addition to your organization to get guys, that like baseball, they want to win, seem very competitive. So I just from the immediate term, White Sox fans, you got to be relieved, even if he doesn't take ownership or Jerry's still in control, just the fact he didn't take over your division rival. Because the Twins, if you have a guy that's willing to spend and like you get these big spenders in that division, which they currently do not have, you could control that division for years to come. And, Minneapolis, not a bad, they got a modern-ish new ballpark up there. It's worth a trip. If you're a White Sox fan and everyone take a good road trip, Minneapolis is a good one. So I did think that was like my biggest takeaway initially was like, hey, even if Jerry is still in charge for the next couple of years, we dodged a bullet. The fact that the Twins are 19th in payroll, still won 82 games last year, kind of choked away that division in the back half of the stretch. We're lucky they didn't get a guy that would be willing to spend and invest. Now, as far as the White Sox go, I think from what I've heard, even before the news of this broke, that Jerry wanted to keep the team. His son Michael, though, not much of a fan of the White Sox. It sounded like that he was more interested in keeping ownership of the Bulls and then selling off his part of the White Sox. And I think Jerry Reinsdorf probably knew that. Now, this is all speculation, but this is just from what rumors I've heard from some people that work inside the organization. So take that for what you will. But it didn't sound like that Michael was a big fan of the baseball side of things in the family. So he was probably going to sell things. I think Jerry probably knew this. He saw that they were, the Ishbas were making a bid at the Twins. And so according to this article from The Athletic, he called them and was like, whoa, hey, would you be interested in buying more shares to have a path to ownership here in Chicago? Now, if you're a good businessman like they are, you'd understand. Owning the part of the White Sox right now, even though you're kind of the second fiddle in Chicago, still big market, still a desirable location for free agents. And they are starting to lay the foundations to kind of overhaul this organization. As much as it's fun to rip on Chris Getz, there's a lot about what he is doing that you could be optimistic about. He's bringing in a lot. I said this last offseason too, or even during the season when he's bringing in a lot of seemingly smart people. Brian Bannister, good addition. Gene Watson, good addition. You're bringing in like all these smart minds from outside organizations and kind of rebuilding the structure there. And you also got the 5 top 100 prospects. Hagen Smith and Noah Schultz look like the real deal. Now, we learned this the last time with prospects. You take a grain of salt with how good they're going to be, but seems like they got some dudes in that organization. There's a lot to like. So sounds like Jerry's going to hold on to things, but by buying some of these minority owners out, which a lot of these minority owners, some of them were original investors with Jerry Reinsdorf when, it costs less than $1 million to buy a share in the team. So, if you're them, you don't really have any say in what the team is doing anyway. Since you're a minority owner, why not cash in on that investment? I'm sure a lot of those guys have probably kicked the bucket already. It's already their kids, why not sell those off? So, for Ishbas, I'm sure Jerry offered him, hey, you can buy some more of these shares. We're going to give you a path to ownership where, once I'm done running things, you can be the next chairman. It's all yours. So I think you're a White Sox fan. That's got to be very exciting. I think, you hate to say it, but you don't want to be looking too far. It is the White Sox after all, but it's kind of a sleeping giant. If they do take over in the next couple of years, you got this farm system of prospects, an owner that's willing to spend. The White Sox can be set up pretty well because it's a very desirable city to play in for free agents. But, if you're not the Cubs and you don't have the mystique around your ballpark, let's face it. I love the subtle charm of Guaranteed Rate Field where you get the smell of grilled onions. It's just a cool, I like it. I like the South Side vibe. But, it doesn't have, let's be honest, it doesn't have the history of Wrigley Field. I think a lot of these players appreciate the fact you walk in there, you get to pee in a horse trough, and there's some green shit growing all over the walls. There's a lot of history there. So players, more inclined to go to the north side of town. But I think one of the things holding a lot of players back is, one, how poorly run the organization's been, and two, they don't really pay anyone. The high watermark for people they're paying right now is Andrew Benintendi at $75 million. I'm sorry, in 2025, that's not going to cut it if you're going to, claim to be, if you're going to be a big market team. So speaking of Andrew Benintendi, let's transition to this. White Sox having a little bit, some injury scares here in camp. Andrew Benintendi last week, He was batting DH. He got hit in the hand with a fastball. Or I don't even know if it's fastball. He got hit in the hand with a pitch, broke his hand. He's going to be missing 4 to 6 weeks. Now, Benintendi's confident that he can still try and be ready for the start of the season, but it does sound like he's going to be on the shelf for a little bit. And it's a little concerning since Austin Slater, who the White Sox just brought in yesterday, he had to get scratched from the lineup with some oblique soreness. So if he's out now too, kind of puts the White Sox in an interesting predicament, because it seemed like, with bringing in Slater and Michael A. Taylor and Mike Tauchman, it's like, all right, you kind of have some depth in place to prevent the bottom from falling out. You're probably going to trade Luis Robert, but at least you have a couple veterans here where if we don't feel like Dominic Fletcher's the guy, we don't have to keep putting him out there and struggling and where the bottom completely falls out like last year and you're losing all these games. So I did think it was kind of a good strategy from some of the guys. I liked some of the veterans they brought in. I don't think it makes it a division winner, but I understood the thought process. Now you have now you have Benintendi out, who was presumed to take the majority of the action in left field. Slater and Tauchman were probably going to platoon in right. One of them would be AHing. One of them, depending on the lefty-righty matchup, was going to be out in right field. Slater's missing time now. Then you'd assume you probably have Tauchman in right field. Who do you put in left field? Because Michael A. Taylor is predominantly a center fielder. He's got less than 100 games under his belt, despite playing in the league 11 years, in left field. He's also not very good offensively. Dominic Fletcher struggled defensively last year and on the offensive side of things. I think if they really had faith in him, they wouldn't have been bringing in all these veterans, because you would think that right field would have been the position for him to take over. Oscar Colas, another guy that it's very clear that the White Sox don't trust him. Everyone that's saying like, "Why Oscar Colas deserves a shot," that train has left the station. I mean, there was issues with him under Hahn, but I heard he's had some attitude issues. And when you even watch him in the big leagues last year, he would miss cutoff men, bad base running decisions. Just did not seem like a mature player who was ready for the big leagues. And his production, quite frankly, wasn't all that great anyway. I think they're done with him too. Then you got Corey Julks in camp, who hit .214 last year. He's got 2 hits with 6 strikeouts in his first 11 at-bats. So, I mean, I don't put too much stock in the spring training numbers, but I don't know if you want to be trotting him out there all that often either. So, it was a bit surprising that the White Sox, the Nationals recently just released Stone Garrett, who's an outfielder, 29-year-old outfielder. And Garrett, I mean, he's a pretty solid hitter. He's a .269 hitter. He put together he's had some flashes of offensive potential. That seemed like a guy for the White Sox would be like, hey, this would be a good opportunity to bring some extra competition into camp. We've already seen it already with bringing Joey Gallo into camp, despite the fact that, first base seems to be the only infield position that's solidified with Andrew Braun, but they still brought him in. They brought in Dahlbeck. So they're bringing in all this competition. So you got a guy like Garrett out there. It's like, hey, why not bring him in for competition too? White Sox balked at the opportunity to. So that kind of tells me that, and I might be wrong, but you're going to pass over a guy like that. There were some red flags with Garrett. I'm not going to act like he was a perfect player. He's a very high strikeout rate, and I know the White Sox have really been focusing on guys who get on base and guys who work good at bats. You see it with a lot of the players bringing in, with Slater and Tauchman being 2 examples of that. Guys with high walk rates that understand the strike zone. So Garrett might not have fit at that mode, but what that tells me is the fact that they're not taking a flyer on a guy like that with these injuries to Benintendi. Is like, we're riding with what we got, what we have in the organization. Like, we're just going to weather the storm, and hopefully Benintendi comes back, and we don't think that he's going to be out for a significant period of time. So we'll see if that turns out to be true, but Benintendi being out, you don't have a whole lot of outfielders that you can trust. Like, the outfield depth is a lot thinner, I think, than people expected when you get 2 guys all of a sudden on the shelf there. So I'm going to be very interested to see how long of a leash Fletcher has. And I'm honestly fine if they want to go the route, not bringing anyone in, giving Fletcher another look. I know he struggled a little bit last year, but he's had an offseason to work on some stuff. You did invest a lot to, make that trade last year and bring that guy in. You're not expected to win the division. So if you want to give him a couple games in April, 50 at-bats or so, let's see how it's looking. If it's still not good, I think we got a large enough sample size to know last year, all right, hey, this guy might not be the guy. But if you want to bring him out for a couple weeks to start the season in left field, I'm all for that. Or even right field, you can move Tauchman to left, however you want to do that. So we'll see. I think it's going to be very telling, though, how they handle this injury is how they feel about Dominic Fletcher, because you would think he would be the next in line up to try and fill that spot. Miguel Vargas is another guy that's been kind of struggling too. And you would have thought, because they put him in left field a little bit last year. So I was like, oh, maybe Vargas would be a guy they'd move over. But it sounds like they're trying to test Vargas a little bit at first base too. I know they want him to primarily be a third baseman, but it's been a struggle over there. He had a rough game a few days ago where he had 2 errors. Initially, one got ruled a hit, but both of them he kind of Roger Dorn Olayed it. Didn't really get in front of the ball. Now, the one was tattooed. It was like 102 miles an hour. So, I mean, it wasn't an easy play, but still tough look for a guy that, the team's saying, like, we want you to be the third baseman. And as we talked about a few episodes ago, Vargas and Lenyn Sosa are both out of minor league options. For Vargas, he's going to get every opportunity to make this team. So that'll be another one. How they handle this Benintendi injury is going to be very telling of how they feel about some of these guys, particularly Vargas and Fletcher. Now, I don't think Vargas should be a left fielder. I think the fact they put him out in left field last year was a disaster. You saw some of him trying to play fly balls. But, hey, if you're trying to get him to make the team, he's struggling a bit at third. You already know you're going to have Vaughn at first base. And likely, if, Gallo makes the team, you got no need for Vargas at first base. Do they try and fit a square peg into a round hole and be like, all right, you know what? Let's test your luck out here in left field. So that's going to be very interesting to see. But I'm a little concerned about the depth angle at that point. Hopefully Benintendi comes back. Because I do think Benintendi, as bad as he was for most of the year, he did seem to figure something out at the back half of the season. He really had a lot more pop that he was showing. We shall see. But this lineup has the potential, I think, to be a little bit better than what people think. I know it's so ugly last year, but a lot of the guys they brought in are very professional. They got some very professional hitters that I think can grind out at bats. And I don't think it's going to be a top 10 offense by any means, but I can see this team getting off to a decent first half start. The big X factor is going to be the bullpen, just because there's so many question marks there. Now, there are some interesting names with Cam Boozer and Penn Murphy, especially, has been really good too. But the bullpen, I think, is going to be the biggest issue with this team. But let's be honest, there's not a whole lot of room for like margin for error. Like the margins are very thin. So you lose a guy like Benintendi, even though he was bad last year, that could definitely affect the offense. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. Something to monitor the rest of the way through spring training. I want to get to this too. One of the guys that's been very impressive this offseason has been, you know what? I even forgot to do this. We had the slides. These are the Ishbrow brothers, by the way. That's Matt with a T, the one without the facial hair. So the one that could be buying the White Sox, he's on the left. And then there's Andrew Benintendi right there. We have all this for the YouTube channel, and then we didn't even put it up. You just got to see my ugly mug the whole time, but that's all right. But anyway, let's talk about Davis Martin right now. Now, Davis Martin, you got some clips from here. He kind of carved up the Dodgers. He threw 2 perfect innings against the Dodgers the other day. He had 3 strikeouts during that start. Looked really good doing it. Davis Martin was pretty solid when he got back from Tommy John surgery back half of last season as well. Let's talk a little bit about what he did to kind of improve his arsenal. Now, one of the big things he did post Tommy John surgery was he added a new pitch that really helped him because he had kind of struggled against left-handers. So he added a new pitch called the kick change. And Chuck Garfien from the Chicago Sports Network did a really good job breaking this down. I'm going to give you the Spark Notes version, but he's got the full video there with Davis Martin, who kind of talked about this. But Martin, he was struggling against left-handers, needed something to kind of help against left-handers. But he was saying post-surgery, a lot of the ways they throw changeups is, it can put stress on your elbow. So he, let me make sure I'm getting this thing. So he's a supinator. So a lot of times the changeup, that's typically like how you would hold the changeup. It's like for like a pronator pitcher, which means essentially you have a supinator means you have a tendency to rotate your forearm outward during your throwing motion. For supinator, or a pronator, I should say, your forearm's going to be kind of rotating inward, which if you have Tommy John surgery like he just did, throwing a changeup, rotating it inward, it's going to put a lot of strain on your forearm. So he's like, I'm already a supinator, Tommy John surgery. A lot of the stuff with changeups, I needed to add a changeup, but a lot of the grips and stuff I was testing, it was just putting too much strain on my arm just because I'm a supinator, as he refers to himself. So he developed this thing he calls the kick changeup. The kick changeup, he kind of holds very interesting. So we got a ball right here. It's a 2-seam grip. He's got his middle finger and his index finger on there. Kind of holds it like that. And his middle finger is like the last thing on the ball when he releases it. So the goal is, like, after he does release this thing, is because his middle finger is the last thing on it, it kind of pushes it so it rotates the axis like this. So if you watch kind of the clips here too, you can see the results of what this changeup looks like as it comes into the zone. I watched this one. Here he gets back. Woo! Just kind of drops off. Actually, that one might have been a slide. Let's get a better view right there. There we go. Better example with Shohei. You can kind of see the spin and it kind of like drops in like that. And it's a very good pitch too, because He throws it at 90 miles an hour, 90, 91 miles an hour. So just 4 miles an hour slower than his four-seam fastball, but it comes in at that sharp breaking moment or movement. And the spin on it's so good that a lot of times, even if the left-handers do make contact with it, you're pounding that thing into the ground just because of the spin from it. So I did find that really interesting. And the results kind of spoke for themselves last year after adding this changeup. And he called it a godsend with that interview. But that new grip kind of helped him get inside the ball. And because of that spin on it, his ground ball rate was exceptional. He had one of the, if he was a qualified pitcher, and he only made 11 starts last year, so this is kind of a small sample size, but in 50 innings, 11 starts, his ground ball rate was in the top 25 percentile in the MLB. He also improved his strikeout rate significantly. And it really helped him against lefties. He had a 266 average. Lefties were hitting against him prior to Tommy John surgery. Post Tommy John surgery, that will drop down to 257 batting average against left-handers. He also had a 4.32 ERA last season. Now you might be thinking 4.32 doesn't sound all that impressive, but I remember this post-surgery, middle of the season, with a defense that really isn't all that good. And having a bad defense behind you, it changes the way you pitch. I think you saw it with Dylan Cease. And it was so frustrating watching Dylan Cease because you see the stuff was good, and he'd get ahead 0-2, and he'd start nibbling in the count. And then it would be full count, and then he'd end up walking every couple guys. It's because he'd be nibbling around, and you could tell he was going for a strikeout. But he felt like he had to do that because he didn't, and he never admitted this, but I'll bet you it's because he didn't trust the defense behind him. It's like, I feel like I have to strike everyone out because I don't trust the defenders I have behind me. So I'm sure Davis Martin, you look at a 4.32 ERA, you're like, yeah, that's not great. But, you got to remember, you got this shoddy White Sox defense behind you last year. It was not ranked particularly high. So I'll take a 4.32 ERA on a 41-win team. I think that's only going to get better because you can tell he's pitching with a lot of confidence. This Dodgers lineup he faced, this Teoscar Hernandez, Shohei Ohtani, Max Muncy, these are no scrubs he's striking out here. They're the 2024 World Series champions. They're rolling out a starting lineup, and he looked pretty good doing it. So why not give him an opportunity to be the opening day starter? I think, hell, too, he's only on a one-year contract. He's making less than $1 million this year, but he's going to be arbitration eligible the next 2 years. Cheap pitchers that are good starters, he gets off to a hot start, you could absolutely flip him for a couple prospects. Or if you're so inclined, you extend him, you keep bringing him a part of this rotation that's already got a lot of young, hungry guys. But the rotation right now, the White Sox, you're looking at the options, especially for opening day. I think the most obvious choice right now would be Martin Perez. Been a former All-Star. He's won a World Series. He's the veteran of the group. He's a professional pitcher. You know what you're getting every fifth day. He's going to help eat some innings. He's just a quality starter. But the rest of it, it's a lot of question marks. You're going to have Jonathan Cannon. You're going to put him into opening day? I don't think so. Drew Thorpe coming off an injury. We don't even know if he's going to be ready by opening day. Probably not. Bryce Wilson, no. I mean, we don't even know if he's going to make the rotation or not. You go and throw Sean Burke, maybe, but that's, again, like a tough spot to put a young pitcher like that. And not that Davis Martin isn't, but, he's been with the team for a couple of years now. He's put in his time. His stuff looks filthy. Give him a shot. I'm all for giving Davis Martin the ball opening day. And I think, too, with the changeup, I don't know if this was specifically part of the Brian Bannister, Ethan Katz lab, but you've seen this a couple times now. You saw this with Eric Fetty, too. Eric Fetty comes over from Korea. He's got a new split change, too, and he kind of worked with Brian Bannister on that split change, and it completely changed his grit. And I think you're going to see something very similar with Davis Martin. Do not to be surprised if he has an Eric Fetty-like start to the season. So, man, I'm excited, man. I'm ready for these games to start counting. I'm so sick of these spring training games, especially, you got to pay all this extra money for the games that are on, and, it's ridiculous. I'm ready for the actual season to start. But I will say it is kind of exciting seeing a lot of these guys in camp. Kyle Teal, big prospect from the Garrett Crochet trade. He's doing a session against the Dodgers, and, they got their hot new prospect, Roki Sasaki, throwing his first pitches in a Dodgers uniform, and, first at bat, Teal takes him deep to right field. So you'll love to see that. Hagen Smith, another guy, he had a really impressive outing. He threw a scoreless inning, worked around some traffic, got 3 strikeouts. And after the game, despite having 3 strikeouts, so in a perfect scoreless inning, he's like, yeah, I wasn't very happy with that outing. I was upset that I let the runner who got on second, he stole third. I should have done a better job looking him back. Shouldn't have walked that one guy, and I thought, basically, you know what? I like this. This guy just threw a scoreless inning in his White Sox debut, Cactus League debut, but, still counts along nonetheless. And, he's like, yeah, I'm not satisfied. I can do better. So I love that. Noah Schultz looked filthy as well. It was pretty cool watching his dad on the broadcast getting a call double play from him. So those two, man, I think they're going to live up to the hype. They can just stay healthy. Both those two are going to be studs. So can you imagine? I don't know. That's probably why they drafted Hagen Smith, but another guy that looks really good right now in camp is Garrett Crochet. You imagine all three of those left-handers in the same rotation? Oh my God, that'd be something special. But we got Braden Montgomery, Kyle Teal, Winkleman, Gonzalez. So we're moving on from our ex Garrett Crochet. No hard feelings there. So, but hey, I know things were rough last season, White Sox fans. I know there's probably not a lot to be. You don't think it's a lot to be excited, but there's some good things coming up the pipeline. Potential new owner, some exciting young players. I could see the season playing a lot out like the 2018 White Sox. Were they good? No. But they got up to fourth place at one point. They weren't the worst team in the division, and they were fun. They were a fun, bad team. They lost a lot of games, but they competed hard. They pulled out some games they probably shouldn't have won. You got the first glimpse at some of these younger prospects they brought in. I think this is the 2018 season. Next year, you're going to see a team a little bit closer, losing record, but a little bit closer to around 500, probably win around 75 games or so, low 70s, 75. I think this year they probably win. They'll probably win about, I can see them winning 50, 60 games. I think 65 is not unreasonable, depending who they trade at the deadline, but I can see this team winning 65 games, maybe even coming closer to 70. Hell, Martin Perez said, I think this team could be a contender. Now, I'm not putting too much stock in that because it's like every year you have the guy that comes in the greatest shape of his life. And, last year, Nicky Lopez was collecting bulletin board material because the team could be a little bit better. Saw how that worked out. But, Martin Perez has been on winning teams before. And he's like, hey, you know what? These guys got to start believing themselves. We got a lot of veterans in here. This could be a contender. The division's wide open. So I don't think they're going to tender by any means, but I could see them. I think, here's my bold White Sox prediction. They will be closer to 70 wins this season than they will 40, like they were last year. I think that's my bold prediction. I think they're definitely over the over-under. I think they definitely get over 50. And I can see them getting up to 65, inching in on 70. There's my bold prediction. Don't know how bold it is, but, there are some guys that I'm excited about on this team, and you should be too. That's all I have for you. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you're reading Sports Mockery, sportsmockery.com. You get all the latest White Sox news there. White Sox top 30 prospect list was just updated. We got an article about that. You want to read more about Davis Martin, his new changeup? Got an article about that too. You can also see the video of him breaking that down with Chuck Garfien as well. So we also got Pinwheels and Ivy coming up tonight. It's Matt's birthday though. So wish Zoe a happy birthday. If you haven't already, wish Zoe, OG from Pinwheels and Ivy, wish him a happy 23rd birthday today. I think he's 23, something like that. I know he's going hard playing Golden Tee right now, but 23, you only turn 23 once. So make sure you wish Zoe a happy birthday as well. Like and subscribe. I think I've hit all of my obligations here as far as plugging stuff, but yeah, if you're watching on the YouTube, we appreciate it. Throw the subscribe button. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your week.